So we could talk about more sanctions, but really, if I'm that commander of those soldiers, I'm like, are you serious? This is the plan?
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Lee Roger Wolfgram, and I am a storyteller.
Welcome to the bunker.
The US President Donald Trump sat down with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in St. Peter's Basilica ahead of the funeral. It is the first time the two of them have met since their very public row in the Oval Office at the end of February. A White House official said it was a very productive discussion. Meanwhile, in a statement online, the Ukrainian president said, "Good meeting. We discussed a lot one-on-one, hoping for results on everything we covered, protecting lives of our people, full and unconditional ceasefire, reliable and lasting peace that will prevent another war from breaking out. Very symbolic meeting that has potential to become historic if we achieve joint results. Thank you, POTUS," he signed off.
You know what? I'm just going to, I'm going to continue the interview and I'm going to say, like, you guys are afraid to reveal your faces. Say, because you don't want the Trump to find out.
Lee, by the way, the question to you.
Yeah.
The question to you.
Yeah.
When Trump said that he would like to join the Greenland to United States, why he didn't propose to join Ukraine to United States? Because they have the great mineral deals with Ukraine, and he needs to protect the mineral resources right now.
I think that's good. I think that the more that Trump digs us in that way is better for Ukraine, honestly. Like the fact that we have mineral deal, I don't know if it's a good deal financially for Ukraine or not, but I mean, just if you want the United States to have an interest there, I think that does send a different message to Putin as well as like, and honestly, if we're saying something about Greenland, like we're prepared to protect our shit, that's good for Ukraine as well, because if we get a mineral deal with Ukraine and Greenland, then I think that is good it is kind of the same, a little bit of the same stuff, if that's what it is. I agree with you that would be a really good argument. And I think that's the one right now the United States, or Trump at least has said is, look, if I need stuff, if I put money in Ukraine and the United States has a lot of interest in Ukraine, we'll be damned if we're going to let Putin have that. No fucking way. Still to this day, there's still a lot of money that influenced Ukraine politics, is I think your point, right? Like Ukraine politics dominated by money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's why, I don't know where you go from here. Like, what is the solution to the thing? I think it is we say, stop where shit is right now, roll the army in, roll NATO in, roll whoever wants to stop this shit in. UK says they're going to do it, roll them in right where we're at now. And then I think the only thing that really can save face for both sides, whether it's corrupt or not, I would hope it wouldn't be corrupt, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I think the only way you'd get like any kind of agreement on this shit would have to be to say all those areas that were taken over by Russia now, they're going to have an election.
In the US plan for peace, according to leaks, the deal would see Russia keep the territories that it now occupies in eastern Ukraine. The US will accept them as Russian. Russia will give up its ambition to control the rest of these four regions, land it has failed to secure militarily. In return, the US would accept Russian sovereignty over Crimea, which it illegally occupied in 2014.
Whether they want to be Russian or they want to be Ukrainian. And I know that was why it was really interesting when you said how you lose the property rights if you become Russian, or you don't become Russian. So that is going to sway the election, right? They're going to have no choice. They'll have to vote Russian to keep their property, right? Isn't that what it'll have to be if you do it that way? Because as soon as the Russians take over the territory, it's now Russia. And if you're not a Russian citizen, you can't be Ukrainian owning shit in Russia. There's no such thing. So if you want to keep your shit, you better sign up your hand and say, I'm Russian now.
Yes,
right?
yes, and this allowed then you rejecting from the other citizenship.
Right. You're rejecting Ukrainian citizenship, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's very manipulative, but I think that way the war ends. Democracy's supposed to work so the politicians get their win, right? Because we already know as soldiers, this is fucked up. It's going to have to go balls to the walls all the way, one way, or we're going to have to let the politicians settle it. And if you got to stop the killing, if it's a fake election, that's because people are manipulated or coerced. I still don't know what I'm just trying to come up with an idea what would even can work.
I want to say thank you, 1,000 times thank you for United States. And from beginning the war, American people give United States give to Ukraine huge support, and we very appreciate for that. Without support, we can't survive. And it's ammunition, it's financial support, and it's political support. It's very, very important. We never ever forget friends and supporter of Ukraine.
I know everybody's going to go Russian. I know that. I get it.
No,
You don't think
because
so?
no, Ukrainians are sent away. They're sent to Russia. So one of the reasons Putin went to the International Court of Justice, well, they want to have him, is because they how do you call it? They took 20,000 children and sent them to Russia, and they are sent to Russian families to raise them. And that's one of the reasons they want to have him in court, because that's a war crime.
Well, right. And see, that's what I'm saying, Joe. When you talk about UN and stuff, this is the way I think it's such a joke, really. I mean, so that's against everything.
No, it's not a joke, because at some point Putin won't be president anymore, and then they will catch him. We now have a guy in The Hague, and they are going to prosecute him like the guys in former Yugoslavia. But the bad thing is, of course, that some people will never be taken down. It's so you should send Putin over there. You should send Assad over there.
Yeah.
Fortunately, but if if there is no United Nations, then the next thing we will go to organize in the world is a kind of United Nations, because we need to talk to each other, or you have to fight each other.
Well, as an organization that talks to each other, fine. But as an organization that thinks they're going to say something is bad, but isn't willing to put military force behind it, I think it's just okay, whatever.
The organization is as strong as the member states make the organization
Well,
strong.
right, but if Russia just does what they want, no matter what United Nations says, or China just does whatever they want, no matter what United Nations says, well, who cares about what United Nations says? Just us follow it? Just the good guys do, and everybody else can sit and complain about it? Equally?
The United States doesn't follow the United Nations.
I know.
Oh, I thought maybe you forgot that part.
No, I think it's all a joke. That's why I said it.
Okay.
I think it's all a joke. Okay, so that's Trump's plan, whatever it is, to try to settle the war. And however he goes about it, okay. Is there another plan? And I think the only other plan is going to have to be a military one, because the truth of the matter is Putin doesn't give a fuck what NATO says at all. And United Nations says at all. The only thing.
Well, maybe we should try to. So focusing on Russia doesn't help enough, since Russia is sending its oil to China and India. By the way, India too. But we try to get India on our side, because they're still a little bit in the middle. They're eating from two sides.
Yeah.
But maybe we should try to strangle China more. I think. Could you turn on the plug? So maybe we can try to strangle China more. Are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
And then then forcing China to behave a little bit better, and that's in the interest of Trump anyway, because so they found a note published by the 2025 think tank, the conservative think tank that Trump seems to follow completely.
Yep. But what do we?
And it was,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
had published it and saying basically, okay, China is the main problem. We're going to defend Taiwan. We're going to enforce them because everyone in Taiwan is, of course, afraid. And when the United States leaves Afghanistan, leaves Ukraine, what's going to happen to Taiwan? Now, maybe we should triangle China more.
They thought it would be just another freedom of navigation patrol. April 24th, 2025. The USS William P. Lawrence, a guided missile destroyer, cuts silently through the Taiwan Strait. It's early morning, the sea's calm, skies clear, but tension? You could cut it with a knife. Then, China speaks up. Not just words, a full press statement from the PLA's Eastern Theater Command. Translated loosely, "We see you, and we're not happy." The Chinese military announces it's deployed naval and air forces to shadow and warn the American destroyer. Live updates flood state media. Footage leaks. Radar tracks are published. The message is clear. You're not welcome here. But the U.S. response? Radio silence. No press briefings, no dramatic tweets, just the Lawrence staying her course like nothing happens. What China calls provocation, the U.S. Navy calls routine. But this was no routine on Tuesday. Because that destroyer wasn't just making a point about freedom of navigation. It was walking straight into contested waters that Beijing claims as its own.
Well, I don't disagree with strangling China more because I think also that, like I told you, we buy cheap junk from China. They don't use the same pollution control we do, so we think we're getting a deal. We're not. They're just polluting the planet. We're trying to save the planet. And then they turn around and buy military hardware with the shit they rip off from our technology. And China wouldn't have been worth a shit if we would have never had them build a thing for us. Now you make China big balls and a player that never would have been a player to begin with. And so, I agree with you very much, Gerald. But the problem, again, coming back to the war issue in Ukraine, is squeezing China is a long term. There's not something that's going to happen right away. I don't think that you're going to squeeze China's balls into going, oh, okay, we're not going to back Russia up, or we're going to turn against Russia. And meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers and even Russian kids, because they're just soldiers, you know. You and I, like Yaroslav, was in the field fucking doing the right thing. And this war doesn't stop because some dickhead's talking about, being tough on China. That doesn't save any lives. It just doesn't. You know what I mean? So I think, again, if he's using militaries, somehow we got to get back into Ukraine in full military force of some sort, wherever the borders are now, because you left us a fucking military mess. So now if we're going to be the military, you got to at least give us a fighting chance to hold the line. So again, so we can piss and moan about all that, but at the end of the day, what do you think? What's your idea about what to do with the war then? Do we wait then for some sanctions against China to stop the war in Ukraine?
Well, we start at the beginning from our conversation. The nations are not willing to send soldiers over there.
Yeah.
Well, some individuals went because there was a Polish battalion, there is a Georgian battalion, there were Dutch, Americans, from all nations, volunteers came over. But they didn't send a big
it was the foreign legion in the beginning, but then it was like a small foreign platoons added to the brigades and so on. So because right now it's not so much volunteers coming to Ukraine. Absolutely.
No, not volunteers.
Yeah, no.
Why? Because you're
It's
going to get killed. Why now? Everybody knows. You're going to get killed by a drone.
a huge of losses. Because of huge of losses.
That's why I say, guys. I mean, we can talk about how much it's a bad. Trump sucks. Europe sucks. Everything sucks. But I'm more concerned that I think about Yaroslav all the time. Look right here. I got his shit here, man. I think about it all the time. Like all the time. I don't not think about it. And I don't, that could just as easily be us. And the world politics are fucking around with lives. And when you told me about the soldiers just being tired, I can't imagine that shit. Being in the and seeing
the mistake, the mistake was like that due to shortage of the manpower and due to long line of the combat how to say it of the combat area on the eastern Ukraine. Actually, when the units were placed there, they stand there without any any leave for a long time
on the east side, right?
Yeah, they exhausted. They exhausted.
And God, I mean, geez, so again, so we could talk about more sanctions, but really, if I'm that commander of those soldiers, I'm like, are you serious? This is the plan? You're either going to have to give me, I'm waiting for the cavalry to come, or Europe to come to the rescue, or America to come to the rescue. I'm a Ukrainian soldier, and I've been told, keep fighting, and I have, and I've watched my buddies get killed, and I see these drone attacks that nobody had. I mean, we don't even know how to deal with that shit. We're making it up as we go. What a hell. What a literal fucking hell. And if that means we got to give up some land because we fucked it up in the beginning, I don't know if there's or we just got to go big balls and just get it over with once and for all. I just don't see the choices. And if Trump is the one that says, I'm going to try, I haven't seen anybody else say they're going to do shit. So they're adapting even to our weapon systems now because we've been fucking around enough. Great.
They're working on this, and they started delivering the new type of the weapons that could contesting successfully. So it's just like ping pong with technology, coming. Yeah.
Well, then Trump is right when he's talking about World War III, and the politicians have this up to the extent that now they've mobilized like the United States was able to do to back Europe up in World War II. When the German capacity fell off because they couldn't keep up anymore, but here we go again. We gave them the time, just like the United States. Europe was kind of like stalling enough for the United States to have a couple of years to build all their shit up. And that's exactly what Russia did. He just pulled the United States on us. He just waited for all this time, converted his industrial complex to producing and adapting to our weapons while we're pissing them away. We're not even using them as combined arms like they're designed. We even had air superiority since day damn one. So how the hell is a system supposed to work when it was designed to work with a whole system of other systems that are integrated? That's NATO. You can't give them, here's a tank. Well, it doesn't match anything else. You don't have an F-16 to give you air superiority. You don't have the right air defense systems, and then you sit there and you piss it in there so that they can adapt to it, and you lose the shock and the swift, bold, violent execution of a military operation. And now it's all fucked up. And like you said, so now what? Are we going to do this more? Just throw more technology at it, more soldiers at it, more money at it? And again, I think you got to say, we lost that shit. So who's sending soldiers for the Ukrainians?
It's Minister of Foreign Affairs of Baltic countries.
So they are sending troops now?
No. They say that they should continue support Ukraine.
Sure.
That Ukraine able to fight with the Russia following 5 years.
But do you have 5 years left of soldiers?
Yes, that's the question was today in Ukraine, right?
they're hiring professional soldiers, and they pay them 1 million hryvnia. And you have to divide by 40, and then you have the number of dollars.
Dollars. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, so no, I was more like from a, so you can pay soldiers, but you can raise the price to $1 billion when you're out.
As I know from the media sources from Ukrainian, they hired for 2 brigades right now, the young people.
2 brigades.
More or less, yeah. It's like, is it true or not true? I couldn't say, but it was, yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is, Lee, that the Ukraine is the only country where they mobilized from 25, and I think it was 27 in the beginning.
Yeah, 27.
Yeah,
all of they mobilized from 18.
Yeah,
but you also should but I think that the administration was not perfect in the Ukraine. But when the Russians started the war, the people fleeing from the east to the west, they are not registered anyway, I think. Right. And a lot of people try to flee over to Western Europe.
Right. Yeah. Well, I remember the lines Forrest and I waited in line for a day to get out. There were so many people trying to get out.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the politicians here say now, before we send our soldiers, we send back to Ukraine men that stay over here. And obviously, they have a point.
Well, I think you got to draft younger. I mean, I think that you draft old because those guys will get too old if you don't start there. But you got to draft younger too. So now you're talking 5 years though. That means the kids that are 13 years old now might end up in this war. By when you talk about these other countries, we think you should fight for 5 more years, but we're not going to do anything.
In Odessa, we have the airfield, the main area, seaport. We're usually under attack. Yeah, I mean it's like the military objects. Yeah, but of course the rockets, when the rockets was shot down, because on the way to military targets, for example, like airfield, they're just falling down in civilian area and killing the people.
It is killing people, the civilians.
Yeah, and the drones, the new tactics of the drones that also they started to use. Usually drones, the mobile group, they're using, for example, like some type of the machine guns. But when the drones flying on the height from 3 kilometers up to 5 kilometers, you couldn't use the simple machine gun to shoot them. So on this height, they're coming to the object, and then, for example, 4 or 5 drones going down like simulation. Yeah. So in this case, it's less chance to shoot them.
Yeah, and see, that's what I mean. So this is just
the tactics. It's also, you see this they play with the tactics also.
Yeah,
the same.
Yeah. The Ukrainians doing the same. Yeah. So they are learning each other,
And and the thing is, I don't even blame the Russian soldiers because they don't know what's really going on. They don't necessarily know that they're being lied to by Putin. And
exactly.
So those kids are getting killed too.
Well, after leaving Rome, the US President Donald Trump posted this on Truth Social. I'm just trying to clean up the mess that was left to me by Obama and Biden, and what a mess it is. With all of that being said, there was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He is just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently through banking or secondary sanctions. Too many people are dying, he ends with 3 exclamation marks.